You're sitting on the couch after a long day, maybe watching TV or finishing something on your laptop. The house is quiet, and for a moment, everything feels calm. Your dog walks over. No barking, no jumping, no excitement, just a calm presence beside you. Then something small happens. Your dog slowly lifts one paw and places it on you. Sometimes it lands on your arm, sometimes on your leg, sometimes it gently rests on your hand. And then your dog looks at you. Not the intense stare it gives when you're eating, not the playful look that usually means it wants a toy or a walk. This look is different. It's quiet, focused, almost like your dog is waiting for something. Most people don't think much about this moment. They assume the dog wants attention, maybe a little petting, or maybe it just wants to play. Some people even laugh and say their dog is trying to hold their hand. But behavioral science suggests something more interesting may be happening here. Because when a dog places a paw on you, it usually isn't random. Dogs communicate almost entirely through body language. They use posture, eye contact, movement, and touch to send signals. And this small gesture, the gentle placement of a paw, can actually be a subtle social message. Many canine behaviorists consider it a quiet way for a dog to start an interaction. Not loudly, not urgently, but in a calm and controlled way. Almost like the dog is saying, "Hey, I'm here." What makes this behavior even more fascinating is when it usually happens. Dogs often do this in calm moments, when you're sitting still and your attention is somewhere else. In social animals, gentle touch is often used to reconnect without creating tension. It's a low-pressure signal, a soft request for awareness. So when your dog places its paw on you, it may not just be asking for attention. It may be opening a social connection, a quiet invitation. And to understand why dogs evolved this behavior, we first need to look at how dogs actually start conversations without using a single sound. To understand why dogs place a paw on you, we need to look at how dogs normally begin social interactions. Unlike humans, dogs don't start conversations with words. Their communication system is built almost entirely around body language. Small movements, posture changes, eye contact, and physical contact all carry meaning. In canine behavioral psychology, the act of placing a paw on another individual is often considered a social contact signal. It's a way of initiating interaction without creating pressure. In the animal world, direct demands can trigger tension. Loud barking, jumping, or intense nudging can sometimes escalate excitement or conflict. Gentle touch, however, works differently. It invites interaction rather than forcing it. When a dog places a paw on you, it's often trying to hold your attention for a moment. The dog is essentially creating a physical connection that says, "Focus on me for a second." This behavior becomes especially common in dogs that have learned that gentle signals work better than noisy ones. If a dog once placed its paw on you, and you responded with eye contact, petting, or soft talking, the dog's brain registers that interaction as successful. Over time, the behavior becomes reinforced. In other words, the dog learns that a quiet touch is an effective way to start a conversation. But there is another interesting detail. Dogs rarely use this behavior randomly. Many owners notice that paw placement happens when they are distracted. Maybe you're on your phone, maybe you're watching television, maybe you're focused on your computer. Your dog notices this shift in attention, and instead of barking to interrupt you, it chooses a softer method, a small touch, a quiet signal that says, "I'm here too." From a behavioral standpoint, this is actually a fairly sophisticated form of communication. The dog isn't just reacting impulsively, it's choosing a low-conflict strategy to re-enter your social space. And once that paw touches your arm or hand, something even more interesting begins to happen inside the brain, both yours and the dog's. Because physical contact between dogs and humans activates powerful neurological bonding systems that strengthen the relationship between both species. When your dog places a paw on you, the moment may look simple on the outside, but inside the brain, something much more powerful may be happening. Physical contact between dogs and humans can activate important neurological systems linked to bonding and reward. One of the key chemicals involved is oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin is the same hormone that strengthens connections between parents and children, close friends, and romantic partners. Studies on dog-human interaction have shown that gentle touch, eye contact, and calm physical contact can increase oxytocin levels in both the dog and the owner. In other words, both brains respond. When a dog places its paw on you and you respond with touch or attention, the dog's brain may experience a small dopamine reward. Dopamine is associated with positive reinforcement. It tells the brain that something good just happened. Over time, the dog learns that this quiet physical signal leads to positive outcomes. The behavior becomes part of a feedback loop. The dog initiates contact. You respond with attention or touch. The brain releases rewarding chemicals. The behavior becomes more likely to happen again. This is sometimes described as a bonding feedback loop between dogs and humans. And there's another detail that makes this interaction fascinating. Dogs appear to be unusually sensitive to human emotional responses. They watch our facial expressions, track our tone of voice, and respond to subtle changes in attention. When your dog gently places a paw on you and waits for a reaction, it may be monitoring your response just as carefully as you are noticing the behavior. In a way, the dog is testing the social connection. If you respond warmly, the interaction strengthens the bond. If you ignore it, the dog may try again later or choose a different signal. But this kind of gentle touch isn't something dogs invented when they began living with humans. The roots of this behavior may go much deeper, reaching back to the social communication systems of their wild ancestors. To understand that, we need to look at how wolves and early canids used physical contact to maintain social bonds inside a pack. To really understand why dogs place a paw on you, we have to go back thousands of years, long before dogs lived in human homes. Dogs evolved from wolves, animals that survived by living in tightly structured social groups called packs. Inside these packs, communication was constant, but it wasn't loud or dramatic most of the time. Much of it was quiet. Wolves relied heavily on subtle body language and gentle physical contact to maintain relationships within the group. Small touches, brief nudges, and soft physical signals were often used to maintain social awareness between pack members. These touches served several purposes. They could confirm social bonds. They could attract the attention of another wolf without triggering aggression. And sometimes they were simply a way of maintaining awareness within the group. In highly social species, maintaining connection is critical for survival. Pack members need to know where others are, whether they are safe, and whether the social bond between them is stable. Gentle contact helps maintain that stability. Over thousands of years of domestication, dogs adapted these ancient social behaviors to interact with humans. Humans effectively became their new social group. So when your dog places a paw on you, it may be using a version of the same social signals that wolves once used with each other. It's a calm, non-threatening way to establish connection. Not a demand, not a command, just a signal. Something that says, in the language of social animals, I acknowledge you. Are you still connected to me? This is one of the reasons dogs are so remarkably good at living with humans. They didn't just learn to tolerate us. They learned to communicate with us using the same social tools they once used inside a pack. But modern research has revealed something even more surprising about this behavior. Dogs that frequently initiate gentle touch with their owners may actually share a deeper psychological bond with them. And scientists have begun studying this connection in ways that reveal just how emotionally complex the dog-human relationship can be. In recent years, scientists studying dog-human relationships have begun paying closer attention to small behaviors that signal emotional connection. One of the patterns researchers often examine is how dogs initiate physical contact with their owners. In controlled behavioral studies, dogs are sometimes placed in situations where they can choose whether to interact with their owner or explore the environment independently. Researchers then observe how the dog attempts to start communication. Some dogs bark or jump to get attention. Others bring toys or circle around their owner. But many dogs choose a much quieter approach. They initiate gentle physical contact. This can include leaning against the owner, resting their head on a leg, or placing a paw on the person's arm or hand. These behaviors are considered forms of contact-seeking communication. Interestingly, dogs that frequently use these calm touch signals often show stronger attachment patterns in what scientists call secure attachment tests. Secure attachment is a concept borrowed from human psychology. It describes relationships where an individual feels safe, connected, and confident that the other partner will respond. In these studies, dogs with strong owner bonds tend to check in more often. They look at their owner more frequently, seek proximity, and use gentle physical signals to maintain interaction. Placing a paw on the owner can be part of that communication system. Instead of demanding attention loudly, the dog uses a subtle signal that says, "I want to stay connected." What makes this particularly fascinating is that these behaviors often appear most strongly in dogs that feel comfortable and emotionally secure with their owners. In other words, the gesture isn't always about neediness. Sometimes it's a sign of trust, a quiet confirmation that the relationship between dog and human is stable. But like many behaviors in animal psychology, context still matters. Because while gentle touch can signal strong bonding, the same behavior can sometimes appear for a very different reason. And that's where the story takes an important turn. If a dog places its paw on you too often, or seems unable to relax without constant contact, the behavior may be pointing to something else happening beneath the surface. Something related not to connection, but to dependence. Most of the time, when a dog places a paw on you, it's simply a gentle attempt to connect. But like many social behaviors, the meaning can change depending on how often it happens and what other signals appear at the same time. In healthy interactions, paw placement is usually occasional. The dog touches you, you respond, and the interaction naturally ends. The dog then relaxes or moves on to something else. But in some situations, the behavior can become repetitive. A dog may constantly place its paw on you whenever you stop paying attention. It may repeat the behavior again and again if you ignore it. Sometimes it's accompanied by whining, pacing, or restless body language. When that happens, behaviorists begin to look at a different possibility: attention dependency. Some dogs learn that physical contact is the fastest way to regain their owner's attention. If the owner consistently responds every time the dog paws them, the behavior becomes strongly reinforced. Over time, the dog may begin using it as its primary strategy to maintain interaction. In mild cases, this simply means the dog has learned an effective way to ask for attention. But in stronger cases, the behavior can be linked to over-attachment or early signs of separation-related anxiety. Dogs that struggle to tolerate emotional distance from their owners sometimes rely on constant physical signals to reassure themselves that the connection is still there. The paw becomes a kind of check-in signal, a way of asking, "Are you still with me?" Behaviorists often recommend paying attention to the dog's overall body language in these situations. A relaxed dog that occasionally touches you is usually displaying healthy social bonding. But a dog that repeatedly demands contact, especially when paired with anxious behaviors, may need help learning how to feel comfortable without constant reassurance. Understanding the difference is important, because the same behavior can have two completely different meanings depending on the emotional state of the dog. And once you see that difference, the small gesture of a paw on your arm begins to reveal something much deeper about the relationship between dogs and humans. Because at its core, this behavior isn't really about the paw at all. It's about connection. And in the final part of this story, we'll look at the simple emotional message many dogs may be sending when they reach out and touch the person they trust most. When you step back and look at the behavior as a whole, the moment your dog places a paw on you begins to feel very different. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's one of the quietest signals a dog can give, and yet it carries meaning. Dogs don't have language the way humans do. They can't say what they feel with words. Instead, they rely on small gestures: eye contact, body position, proximity, and touch. A paw placed gently on your arm is one of those gestures. Sometimes it means the dog wants your attention. Sometimes it's asking for interaction. Sometimes it's simply acknowledging your presence. But very often, it's something even simpler. It's a small social connection. In the same way humans might tap someone on the shoulder or lightly touch a friend's arm during a conversation, dogs use physical contact to maintain awareness between themselves and the people they trust. And that trust matters. Because dogs don't reach out like this to just anyone. They tend to reserve these quiet contact signals for the people they feel safest with, the ones they see as part of their social group. So the next time your dog walks over and gently places a paw on you, pause for a moment before brushing it off as a random habit. Your dog might not be demanding anything. It might simply be checking in. A small reminder that, in the dog's world, relationships are maintained through presence, attention, and contact. A quiet way of saying something dogs have been communicating for thousands of years. I'm here. And in that moment, your response, even something as simple as a glance or a gentle touch, tells your dog something important in return. Yes, I'm here too. What many owners don't realize is that the moment after your dog places its paw on you may actually be the most important part of the interaction. Because dogs are constantly learning from our reactions. If you immediately respond with eye contact, petting, or soft talking, your dog's brain registers that the signal worked. The behavior becomes reinforced, and your dog learns that gentle touch is an effective way to communicate with you. In many ways, this is exactly how healthy communication develops between dogs and humans. Your dog tries a signal, you respond. The dog learns that the connection is real. Over time, these small exchanges build a predictable social pattern between the two of you. Your dog begins to understand how to start interaction calmly rather than demanding it with barking or jumping. That's one reason many trainers actually prefer dogs that use quiet signals like paw placement. It shows the dog has learned a low-pressure way to communicate. However, the way you respond can shape how often the behavior appears. If you respond every single time the dog touches you, the dog may begin using the behavior more frequently. If you sometimes acknowledge it and sometimes stay neutral, the dog learns that the signal works best in calm moments rather than constantly. Consistency helps dogs understand social boundaries. The goal isn't to stop the behavior. In most cases, it's a healthy sign of social bonding. The goal is simply to keep the interaction balanced. A calm touch, a brief response, and then a natural return to normal activity. And when you look at the interaction from that perspective, the small moment of a paw resting on your arm becomes something surprisingly meaningful. It's not just a habit. It's part of a communication system that has been evolving between dogs and humans for thousands of years. A system built on trust, quiet signals, and shared attention. And sometimes the smallest gestures say the most.